right, my name's Michael Vasaya. I work with Chris at the University of Washington, and I have the honor of introducing our last speaker tonight. If you'll forgive me, John, I'm gonna take a moment here just to thank everyone on the Drive team that put this together, especially. I want to give special thanks to Machiko. Machiko at the university, is she here? So a lot of people from the University of Washington and a lot of other institutions worked really hard on this. Not one of them was me. In fact, when Chris dreamed up this idea a couple of years ago, he was like, we should put on a conference. And I was like, dude, I don't even like going to conferences. You want to host one? And I know, in Chris's head, he was thinking, you just haven't been to the right conference. And he set out to put one together. And that's kind of the thing that's amazing about Chris Sorensen is where at least me, and I think a lot of people here, see big, hairy challenges. Chris just sees amazing opportunities. So I just want to give a hand to Chris. I think if Chris and I, we worked together at the University of Washington, if we'd worked at a bicycle shop in Kitty Hawk at the turn of the century, I'd have been the guy saying, I don't know, Chris, that seems pretty complicated. Maybe we should just stick to making bikes. So Chris just goes for it. He goes big. So I think you're going to love the speaker that he has managed to bring in to close us out at the conference. John Hill is the higher ed evangelist for LinkedIn. And prior to that, he was the director of career services at Michigan State University, where he had to serve 420,000 alumni free career services at the height of the recession. Really close to the heart of the automotive industry. And so I think he wisely figured out a good way to do that by setting up the first partnership between LinkedIn and a university. He joined LinkedIn shortly after that, and I think I was just talking to him about this. In the last year, he's flown 330,000 miles. He's done 200 presentations in 7 countries and 43 states. And, this is the part I want you to hear, Walt, he did all of that while wearing a sweater vest. John, whenever I wear a sweater vest, my boss, Walt, here gives me a hard time. So I want you to emphasize that the sweater vest is the source of your power. He needs to hear that. So, without further ado, John Hill, thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. It's a clappy group. I love that. That was Thunderstruck that we were listening to just before this. I'm going to adopt that to every speaking engagement I do from now on because I'm like totally pumped right now. I'm like, Drive 2013, break out the lighters kind of thing. I want to yell out, Freebird! I've always wanted to say that in front of a crowd, so I'm glad I got away with that right now. To expound on the sweater vest story, I'll give you a little background of the position I'm in at LinkedIn. I'm the higher education evangelist, and I came from East Lansing, Michigan. And if you think about the difference between East Lansing, Michigan, and where LinkedIn is based in Mountain View, California, right in the heart of Silicon Valley, they're night and day. And a year and a half ago, I started at LinkedIn. I was still commuting from Michigan for the job, but I had to come out for a 2-week training. Every 2 weeks, the CEO gets up in front of the whole company. Jeff Weiner gets up in front of the whole company, and he talks about strategy. And the first thing he talks about are new employees. And so he wants to talk about the talent that's coming into the company, so you can see it's representative of the ethos that we're trying to develop as a company. Historically, the company had every new employee get up and speak and introduce themselves to everybody who is there. We're growing so fast that it's impossible to have everybody speak now. When I came in the first week, 60 people started with me. Second week, another 60 people. So over 2 weeks, 120 new people. First all hands that I get a chance to do. It's the end of the second week that I'm there. Jeff is going to get up in front of the company, and I've been warned that I'm likely going to get called up to introduce myself. They're going to pick on 5 people. I speak for a living, so I had a feeling I was going to be one of those people. I'm in a room that's about twice the size as this, 600 employees in the room, 800 via WebEx watching all around the world. Jeff starts out the meeting, says, I'd like to introduce new talent now. He said, John Hill, why don't you come up? And I'm like, oh, great. All right, so I get up in front of the audience, and Jeff goes, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, John? And I said, okay. Well, my name is John Hill. I'm known for 2 things, talking about social media in front of higher education audiences and wearing sweater vests. Get a chuckle from the audience. Jeff turns to me and says, hey, I noticed you're wearing a tie. I didn't pick up on that, and I turned to him and I said, hey, Jeff, I'm trying to bring the tie back to the Valley. 600 employees of LinkedIn boo me. Welcome to LinkedIn. So I'm really stubborn. I continue to wear the tie. I've become known as the tie guy on campus. Literally, if you get lost in Mountain View and ask, who's the guy with the tie that I need to meet, they would find me. They know where I'm at. But I had to continue to wear the sweater vest, the tie as part of the brand. It's what I do. But I had to pay homage to the Valley. So I added the hoodie. Completes the personal brand. So it gives you an idea of why I'm dressed the way I am. All right, by a show of hands, how many of you are not on LinkedIn? Oh, a few brave souls right in the front row. I can pick on you this whole presentation, but I won't do that, I promise. What's interesting, think back to social media presentations over the last 5, 6 years. Think about that question when it was asked 5 years ago. How many of you are not on LinkedIn? Not on LinkedIn, and you would have maybe 3 or 4 people who, if you asked how many people are on LinkedIn, you'd have 3 or 4 people who'd raise their hand 5, 6 years ago. In 5 years, we almost have full adoption in a room like this. That's an amazing thing. And what's better for you, the universities that you represent, the nonprofits that you represent, the people who attach with your brand are also on LinkedIn. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to take you through 4 main areas on LinkedIn: people, jobs, companies, and groups. I'm going to take you through a ride of how you can see the people who are connecting to your brand, how we're starting to differentiate data so you can see it more readily and easier, and I'm going to showcase how you can enable the people who are attaching your brand, your nonprofit, your university to represent your institution. And I'll go step by step through that process. People, I'm going to take you through how you can take the 200 million people who have a profile on LinkedIn and how you can take that mass of people and start to break it down by vertical, by discipline, by job type, by company, by geography, by connectivity. Take this mass of people into a small subset of people that you want to connect with. Jobs, we've become transformative in the job search process. I'm not going to take you through that whole process because none of you are looking for a job right now, right? By a show of hands, how many of you are looking for a job? All right, so I'm going to take you through APIs and what we're starting to do to socialize the relationships that are on LinkedIn, but I'm going to take it through a job search process. So I'm going to take you to a website called Simply Hired, show you what that looks like, but you'll see how it can apply to your websites right now, your web assets, your digital assets. Companies, we have profiles on 2.8 million companies, and we can showcase who in your network relate to those companies and university representation for each one of those companies. And then groups, 1.5 million groups. I am curious, by a show of hands, how many of you control or are connected to a group at a management level? Okay, I'm going to show you some of the back-end aspects of it because there are quite a few people in the room that are. Groups, I'm going to focus on 2 primary groups. Industry, and we'll go into nonprofit. I'll pick on some of you as part of that process, and university. But before we start there, I want to start with how I started utilizing LinkedIn, which was as a virtual Rolodex. How many of you remember the flip Rolodex? You put the business card in, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are pretty much non-existent now, so if you raised your hand, you are old. I'm just kidding. I used to have one as well. And if you think about it, it was woefully inefficient. If you got a business card from somebody, you put it in there, A through Z. They moved jobs, you had to get the new business card, put it back into there, straighten it out, flip it around. It's now on like Antique Roadshow. You don't even see them on people's desks anymore. For a while, I managed through the flip Rolodex. Then I moved into Excel spreadsheet, and if you think about how woefully inefficient that is, I would type in all these names, and in a given year, I would see about 3,500, 4,000 people. Type in these names into an Excel spreadsheet. They would leave jobs. I'd have to go in there and manually delete it and put the new information in. What I love about LinkedIn is it manages my relationships dynamically. So it affords me the opportunity to save some time. I like that. So if I come up here, I'm going to show you how I started utilizing LinkedIn. And by the way, they're beta testing a couple things on me. So one, Michael has, where are you at, Michael? Has allowed me to pick on his profile for a little bit during a certain period of time. So I spoke 200 times last year. I can say about 50 of those times LinkedIn beta tested something on me before I got up in front of an audience, and I wasn't aware that I was being beta tested. So I'm like going into something, I'm like, hey, look at this. No, you can't see this. And I'd have to go to another page. They did this to me last night, so I'm doing something a little bit different. But if you think about what LinkedIn here has, I have their name, I have the title of the person, I have their company, I have their amount of connections on LinkedIn, and as those people move jobs and update their LinkedIn profile, it dynamically updates on the space. And I can start to pick on specific people and show you deeper what a profile looks like on LinkedIn. So I'm going to pick on a good friend of mine. His name is Boomy. Boomy is a serial entrepreneur. He starts a company like every 6 days. This is one of those people that you love to connect with, high velocity. You want him attached to your brand. His backstory is phenomenal. Family originally from Nigeria. Whole family moved out to East Lansing, Michigan. Put him through a computer science program. Post-graduation, he moved across the street from the university, started building IT companies. Started hiring students from the institution he came from, gives money back to the institution. He is like a perfect attachment to a university. He's a representation of what you want your alum to be. And he's a great guy, and he's got an incredible name. So, Boomy, if I click on his profile, you're going to see a couple new things here. All of your profiles should look like this. This is Profile 2.0. And Profile 2.0, you'll see we're starting to move into personal branding. So not only do I still have that business card that we use on that flip Rolodex, I can see his name, I can see his title, his company he works for, his education, very quick snapshot of who Boomy is. But if you see below, I can start to see his activity. I can see what he's commenting on. I can see what information he's sharing, who he's connecting with, what companies, what news he's following. It gives me a read of who he is as an individual, an attachment to his personal, professional brand. And if I scroll down further, I can start to see some interesting career trajectories and brand attachments. So start swinging down. First of all, I can see a summary of information of who he is and what he's about. How many of you collect notes on your alumni or your donors or your connections to your organization? Put it in a database, right? Secondhand knowledge, right? Take a phone call, listen to what the person says, go ahead and type it into the database. This is Boomy in his words. He's telling me what makes him tick, what he's about, gives me some good information about how to engage with him. If I scroll down a little bit further, I love this just from the aspirational aspect of it. I work with students a lot. In fact, I'm presenting at University of Washington Foster School of Business tonight. And I can see career trajectory. So I can see how somebody went from the classroom to the C-suite and the steps that they took. So for instance, Boomy's first job post-graduation was as lead developer of Splasher Technology, then vice president of Artemis Solution, then CEO of Enliven Software. But I can also see the brands that are attached to Boomy based on his work history. Endorsements. Now, this is one of those things that is relatively controversial with some of our folks. How many of you have been endorsed by somebody who has no idea you have the skill, right? And you're like, what the heck is this? All right, two things. You can go into edit profile, you can edit endorsements, you can remove them from endorsing the skill. You can remove the skill or endorsements totally. But what I will tell you is, as you see this in aggregate, it starts to define your personal professional brand. Your audience is saying, you have these skill sets in our eyes. And again, it goes back to that personal branding aspect that you're seeing online. But I can see for Boomy, project management, SaaS, entrepreneurship, software development, those are the things that his audience, his connections are saying he's about. If I have a program dealing with entrepreneurship, I'm trying to get it funded. If I'm trying to do entrepreneurial programs as part of my nonprofit, I find that he's a good person. This is lead generation for me. This is a good person to attach to try to promote what we're doing in that space. If I scroll down a little bit further, I can see interest. This is something that we love having in our databases, but it's difficult to collect on people. You can see Boomy's got basketball, cars, entrepreneurial things. I'm a former editor at a national sports magazine called Athlon Sports. We did preseason annuals for college pro football, college pro basketball, baseball, golf. I was the college basketball expert. I use that term loosely. But I love college basketball. I could talk about it all day long. In fact, we could flip the script right now and start talking about basketball. You guys probably wouldn't want that, But if you think about what I have here, I have the ability to take a cold call into a warm call. I have an interest that Boomy has, basketball. If I pick up the phone and gave him a call, I can start to use basketball as a connective point, then get into the business that I want to get into. In his words, he's telling me what his hot points are. And if I scroll down a little bit further, I can see organizations. Who are my nonprofits in the room? Okay. He is listing some of the nonprofits he works for right now. We have causes, volunteerism. You have the ability to attach organizations. One of the easiest low-hanging fruit that you can do is start asking your member base, those people who are donating to you, those people who are connecting to your brand, to represent the brand, the nonprofit, in this space. So it's on their profile, then it becomes more searchable for you within our system. If I scroll down a little bit further, I can see more brand attachments. So I can see the groups he's attaching to. I can see the news he's following. I can see the companies he's following. Gives me a good read into what makes him tick as a person, as an individual. And then I can see that he's attached to a university group. Who are my universities in this room? LinkedIn does not force people to join university groups. The university does not force people to join these groups. This is an indicator of interest to connect back to the university. For whatever reason, emotional or transactional, they've raised their hand to connect back to the institution by joining these groups. They've shown that they have an affiliation back to the university. It's up to you to figure out how to connect them back, but they're giving you an indicator they're interested. Now, how many of you, and in this room it should be a lot, how many of you have heard of a customer relations management tool? All right, so I'm not going to do the explanation of what a CRM is, but we definitely have one that I would consider an individual level CRM. If I come down here, and by the way, everything I'm showing you, you can do, basic level. No upgrade on subscription. You can walk through everything that I'm showing you how to do. On all my first level connections, I've got this view and edit contact information. If I click on this, it opens up another box. LinkedIn pulls in those first 4 areas, name, title, company, and email. Boomy added his phone number. Boomy added his instant message. He added his birthday. I did not add that information in there. I cannot change it. But I can add accentuation data to that. So say I had another phone number, 555-1212. I could add that information here and save it to his profile. And I can start to manage the relationships around Boomy as well. Oh, and one additional thing. If I add anything here, Boomy cannot see it. Nobody else within LinkedIn can see it. I cannot change the information that Boomy's put here, but it's a two-way input, one-way view. And I can start to manage the relationships that I have around somebody like Boomy. So for instance, I can say his assistant is Joe, save that to his profile with the name of the gatekeeper in between me and Boomy. And then better yet, I can start to capture some of the commentary, the conversation around the relationships I have. So if I come down here, I can start to save notes and say something like, on 3/11, Boomy and I talked about starting a biz. That's what he does. 3/12, Boomy moves quick. We started a biz. 24-hour business plan was absolutely brilliant. 3/13, we failed. If I save this to his profile, I'm the only one who can view that information. Nobody else within LinkedIn can view that information. Now, one way that I used to use this, how many of you operate or connect into the VPN? Have a VPN, right? Virtual privacy network, way to protect data, garden wall type scenario. My university had a great VPN. So great that while I was in Phoenix, it never allowed me to dial in. So I had to save the contact notes and the people I was doing career and professional development events with, our CEOs, VP level people. I had to keep notes somewhere. For a while, I was doing it in a Word document. Woefully inefficient, get back, I'd have to copy it, put it into our system. I started saving the contact notes into this space. When I'd get back to the university, I would copy it and put it back into our database. So essentially, I had a carbon copy of all the relationships I was connecting with. So, one additional thing this is one of those hidden gem type scenarios. If I close out on here, I come up to contacts, go to connections, look down on the right-hand corner, export connections. On all my first level direct connections, I can export that information, and it's going very slow, into a CSV file, which is a fancy term for Excel. I can take this, and you guys know this, I can take this information, all my first level connections, out of the site. There we go. We are the only social medium that I'm aware of that allow you to start to extract some of the first level connections, those direct connection information out. So if I kept notes on people, I can go back to utilizing Excel as my way to manage my relationships. So if you want to take a step back, feel free. Anyway, let's talk about how LinkedIn works, and this is the beauty of the network. It showcases your relational map. It showcases how you can get from point A to point C utilizing relationships along the continuum. So I'm going to pick on some of you. I'm going to pick on this row right here. I'm sorry, guys. So what's your name? Aaron. Aaron? Okay. So Aaron, we're not connected on LinkedIn, correct? Yes. It's like a magic trick. So Aaron, say you're connected to him and he's connected to him. Once you and I connect, you become a first level connection. You become a connection of a connection, second level connection. You become a connection of a connection of a connection, third level connection. You and I join a group together, we can see everybody in the group. This is my relational map. LinkedIn is very good at showing the linear relationships you have emanating out of your own personal brand. Now, I'm a big believer in two principles on LinkedIn. One, build your network before you need it so it's there when you do. That also resides offline. Second, build a quality relational network, not a quantity relational network. Social media has conditioned a lot of people to connect with anybody. It starts to dilute the importance of a professional network that LinkedIn can set up for you. So you and I should probably develop a relationship based on 4 major affiliations. And we've watched this work. This is where the vast majority of connectivity and velocity of communication and messaging through LinkedIn come through on relationships. Number 1 affiliation is friends and family. Problem with friends and family is a lot of times their network isn't big enough to help you out or not aligned with what you want to do. I have nobody in my family who's an evangelist or in social media, so I can't talk to them about work. Second affiliation, university affiliation. That is a huge one I'll get back into in just a bit. Third affiliation, shared work experience. I worked at a company called Gannett. If somebody from Gannett were to pick up the phone and give me a call, likely to take that call. Fourth affiliation, volunteerism. Board work, committee work, causes, interests for students, student groups are a huge one, but gives you an idea. So say where'd you graduate from?
University of Mississippi.
Okay, University of Mississippi. Say you and I graduated from University of Mississippi, all right? Ole Miss, right? All right, so we really don't like Mississippi State University, right? So we used to root against Mississippi State University in the football games, stuff like that. You and I would go tailgating, grab a few beers, hung out all the time. We'd help each other in homework, whatever. Knew each other well, all right? We built that relationship like that. What's your name?
Hisham.
Hisham? Everybody give Hisham a round of applause. Hisham is the most important person in the room right now. He's considered, that's pretty cool, isn't it? He is considered a weak tie, connection of a connection. You and I built that relationship on university affiliation. Say you guys work together, same thing. You were in a cubicle next to each other, yelling at the boss all behind his back all the time, whatever. Is that what you do? Perfect. So we worked on this beforehand. Anyway. Say I asked to connect for you to connect me with him. Are you likely to do it?
No.
All right, so I'm going to step up. Let's pick 3 new people. So what I could say is the vast majority of people will say yes. We have an outlier here. Vast majority of people will say yes. Chances are if you were to accelerate that to him because of your relationship, he's likely to connect back to me. It completes the triangle. First, second level connections, weak tie, most important person in the room right now. What's your name? Young Jin. Everybody give Young Jin a round of applause. So he's totally not important at all. What we've found is as we start to get out to the third level, it starts to get a little bit diffuse on this relational map. These are the primary 2 people to look at. Now in the job search process, 85% of the opportunities come out of connection of a connection, second level connection. I can also say that that's likely to happen with business development or anything that you're doing on a business side. It's not who you know, it's who they know. There are 100 people here, there are 10,000 people here. That's amplification of network. And that's part of what we're talking about. Now, what's your name? Ian. Ian is very important as well because of the attachment to groups, to university affiliation, industry affiliation. So you have a play in this. We'll get back to you in just a second. But first, second, third level connection, we can start to dig down on data. And this is where I'm going to switch on to Michael's profile. We're going to go into search, start playing around, and this is where it gets fun, showcasing data at a different level. If I come up here to advanced search, this is the people search. Gives me access to the ability to start segmenting out information. Who's the number one person you would want to connect with in any company? Who's the ultimate decision maker? CEO. By the way, I'm originally from Boston, grew up in Philadelphia. You're conversationally irrelevant if you don't talk fast. So that's part of the reason I talk so fast. If I pop up here, I come up to CEO, do a search for CEO. 848,000 CEOs in the US, and it defaults to current or past. The past were abject failures. So I come up here and now only look at the current ones. 674,000 current CEOs. Name a university in this room, any university. Wow. Wow. Do you guys want to fight it out? Okay. So, wow, I don't want to pick either one. This is bad. Okay. You know what? Washington State University. Oh. Okay, you know what? Notre Dame. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Washington State University. If I do, and like a Google search, I'm taking all the results. 667 CEOs that graduated from Washington State University. Pick a city. Where's my Washington State person? Pick a city. Sure. Chicago. If I come down here to postal code Chicago, I type in 60601. Take it out 35-mile radius. That gets the whole loop. And hit search. There we go. 11 CEOs graduated from Washington State University. Live 35-mile radius of downtown Chicago. How quickly did I just do that? I just took 200 million users at a level that could help out anybody in this room by an affiliation that you share, by geography that you define. And I did it in about 20 seconds. This was the bastion of Fortune 50 companies 10, 15 years ago. They could build databases like this, parse out information at this level. It's now in the hands of the individual. That's a huge shift in access to data and information. Now, I want to step back one piece. I'm speaking to students tonight. As you speak to students, you start to realize some of the things that you can't mention in presentations anymore. So I used to talk about that C-level thing, that search, where we saw the 848,000 CEOs. I used to say, hey, this is like the white pages of the C-suite. Students are like, what are the white pages? All right, so that was one that made me feel old. But the second one was even worse. So here we are with this relational map. I used to call this the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Students don't know who Kevin Bacon is anymore. So that hurts. Anyway, I'm going to scale this back just a second because all these people are third-level connections. Michael, I'm going to use you for a second. Where are you at? Come on up, bud. So let's take the zip code out of the equation.
You would have got more CEOs if you did University of Washington.
Whoa. Those are fighting words. All right. So pick one of those CEOs. Greg or John? Pick either one.
John.
Okay, so we'll look at John Eliason. All right, and this is cross-rivalry. I apologize, Washington State University. But if I look, similar to Boomy, I've got information about who John is and what he's about. He went to Washington State University twice. His school's so nice he went there twice. He's attached to the WSU Research Foundation, so he's identified with interest to the institution. See recommendations, I can see the people, you know Greg, obviously, that connect. I can see the company's news he's following. He's into VC. He's a good person to know. Who's Greg?
Greg is AVP at the University of Washington.
There you go, shared work experience, all right? Connection of a connection. I can use my shared work experience to get into John, a CEO from Washington State University. I use your network to do that. All right, so one of the things that I will tell you, university affiliation is one of the strongest affiliations, and Michael, you're all done. Give him a round of applause. Sorry, Mike. University affiliation is one of the strongest affiliations for any of your organizations in this room. I don't care if it's nonprofit or university. That shared experience opens up a lot of doors. So what I've been working with students, but this also works with business development on a career services perspective, is utilizing the information you see here. I've got the name, the title of the company. I've got the location where he's at. If I were to do a Google search, I'm likely to find a phone number, if not for him, for his company. I can pick up the phone and give him a call. I could say something like this. My name is John Hill. I'm a graduate of Washington State University. I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about. I was wondering if you take a few minutes to talk to me about that. Two-sentence structure, two very powerful things. Number one, position him as the expert in himself. People love to be the experts in themselves. It's very Dale Carnegie-esque. Second thing is I played into the intrinsic value of connecting back to a university affiliation. This person right here who graduated from Ole Miss with me. So I want to prove that university affiliation for a second. If a student or a representative from your community or a connection that you had were to reach out to you and say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about, by a show of hands, how many of you would take that call? And if you don't raise your hand, you're going to hell. I don't have that power, I'm just kidding. So anyway, visceral connection, you can use that to position the university through conversation, connecting to people based on information on their LinkedIn profile. Okay, so everything I just showed you, it's complicated. That walkthrough is complicated. Getting through that search tool is complicated. You guys have just been in a conference for what, 3 days straight? They've had you in like 72 hours of binge drinking and conference aspects. You're going to go on today, jump in a car, go see your family. They're going to keep your attention for a while. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock tonight, you're going to get on LinkedIn, and you're going to remember the fast-talking guy in the hoodie and the sweater vest and not how to do anything I just showed you. From a university perspective, we wanted to make this data more readily available. And so we created a tool that we call the Alumni Tool. By a show of hands, how many of you have seen this, the Alumni Tool? That's crazy. So this is a dashboard of the alumni from an institution by where they live, where they work, and what they do. So if I pop over, I'm going to jump off your profile for a second, my friend. If I pop under here, on your profile, the university you went to, you can click through and access this. Or you can go up to contacts, select the university you came from. If I select on that, I see a dashboard of all the alumni from the institution I came from by where they live, where they work, what they do. Now, you can see on the corner, it defaults to when I went to Michigan State University, 1990 to 1995. I was on the 5-year plan, really enjoyed college. I can change everything on here. So I can take this down to 1900 and see the 130-year-old graduates walking around. I can take this up to 2020. Future, I can take this to include people with no dates, and I can see 174,976 students and alumni from Michigan State University, where I previously worked. I worked heavily with our database team, and for those of you who were in the last session that was here, I thought they were talking about something that was really important, which is starting to identify the social media ambassadors that you have for your brand and attaching them to your databases so you can start to read the information that's available there. But I can also tell you, because I was trying to do some of that same work at MSU, we had active email addresses on about 160,000 MSU alumni. LinkedIn has become a broader communication channel with more in-depth information than the database that we held as an institution. Now, I can also change to any school. And so that I'm not playing favorites in the audience, I can come up here and I can go to University of Washington. Are you guys happy with that? Yes. All right. And now I can see the 160,000 students and alumni that have a profile from University of Washington by where they live, where they work, what they do. And everything here is clickable. So now I can see the top 25 markets. Who wants to be picked on? Who's a University of Washington person here? None of you are going to raise your hand now. All the way in the back. There you go, bud. Name a city up here on the left-hand side you'd like to see a little bit more data about University of Washington alums. How about San Francisco, because that's where I came from? All right. 7,497 people. Where they work and what they do just changed to reflect that audience in San Francisco. Pick what they do. Law? Pick one that's up there. Information technology. I can now see where they work based on IT. If I scroll down a little bit further, oh, we got to get you guys more connected to LinkedIn. Pick one of those companies where they work. Google. 12 people at Google, graduated from University of Washington, live in San Francisco, are in information technology. And I can see each one of them and how I relate to them. If we have years of graduation, you'll also see years of graduation listed here. That's the drop the microphone moment. I can walk out now. That's pretty cool, right? Cool show of data. Let me ask you this. What would you like to see out of this data for the jobs that you guys have? Pull out a raw data file? Data integration, right? All right. So will you guys give us all of the alumni data that you have from your institution? This is a deal we'll make. Would you do that? Don't say yes. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. All right. So we have a terms of service which is very user specific. We're not going to share any information with a third party at all. But if you think about the relationship between a university and our user that we can identify as yours, they see an attachment there that kind of transcends a corporate connection or relationship. We're looking at ways where we can potentially position people to say, I would like to opt in my information into university databases. We'll potentially look to do that through APIs, co-registration, authentication, and we'll work with your systems and the providers that are connecting into your databases right now to try to do some of that. What I will tell you is overall we look at ourselves as like BASF. We just want to make existing products better. We don't want to be the products. So you're not going to see us positioned as an enterprise system. It's just not where we're going to go. But I can start to show you how that resonates. Before we get there, I just want to show you one more really cool trick here. Any of you work in a specific area within a university, engineering, business school, anything like that? Law? You really want me to show law. All right. That's awesome. All right, so if I come up here, we just added 3 more facets. Where people studied, what they studied in school, where they're skilled at, and how you're connected to each one of them. Let's see if we can find law. What's the name of your law school? School. All right, that's awesome. Okay. University of Washington School of Law. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to explain something to you in a second right here. Over the last year and a half, we've been working to standardize all of our university data. We made a mistake early on. We allowed anybody to represent on their LinkedIn profile the school however they wanted to represent it. So for University of Washington, could have been UW, could have been University of Washington, same school to the user, 2 different schools for you and for us reading data. We realized that. So the project that we've been going on, and this is how it's resolving in this alumni tool, so what you're seeing is the universe of data related to your institution. We had to work with iPads, the federal government to get access to iPads. So essentially that's a unique identifier for every college and university. It actually goes down to the law school level, the B school level, and the med school level. We could use that as the anchor for the information that we have on LinkedIn and essentially start to slot the university iterations underneath that. The challenge is UW could be University of Wisconsin. User, UW, they think it's 2 different schools. For us, it looks like one same school. So we had to create an algorithm where we could actually go through their networks on an individual level and look at how they were connecting and who they were connecting to from a university level, what jobs, what industries they were going into, by high probability slot them into one school or the other. So it gives us a universe of data. That's how it looks here. We're not down into the law school, the business school, and the med school, so you saw it come up twice on that search. We're heading towards that direction. But this is a pretty good snapshot of who you are right now. So pick one of these, what they studied that you might be interested in. Taxation. Okay. So if I click on the 315 people from your law school that studied taxation, I can scroll back here, and I can see where they work, where they live, what they do. Every one of those cities that I click on, I get the top 25 employers. If you think about it, and by the way, you can add additional cities. So if I scroll down here, or countries, I could come down here and look at China. And you have nobody in China right now studying law. But if they were, it would show up there. What you have is essentially a corporate engagement lead list for every market in the world, for every university affiliation to the organizations that your alums are working at. That's high value. Now, step back just a second. We'll take China out of the equation. What would you like to see out of the taxation people? What's an indicator that they might give money to you? Partner? They're what? Okay. So every word on your LinkedIn profile is indexable. I could search basketball here and see interest. But I can also break those 315 people into the 30 people that are currently had listed partners somewhere in their profile. I could use basketball as the equation, take it down even further if I wanted to. So every word, indexable, usable, searchable on that. But for your students, aspirational. It gives them the idea of who's in front of them, what jobs they could go into, what areas that they go into post-graduation. Now, the other cool thing is some of you are connected to development. And by the way, nonprofit folks, I'll get back to you in just a second, so don't give up on me. So if I come back here, I can also look at year graduated. And so if I'm doing a reunion campaign 25 years out, I want to look at the law students from 1988. I have a list of where they live, where they work, and what they do right now. You've got 4 people in entrepreneurship, and this is just taxation. 4 people in entrepreneurship. It's giving me an idea of the types of things that might resonate around a gift based on data. Now, let's talk about API, and we'll talk about the job search, changing things. And what time am I on to? I got another 5 minutes, is that what it is? So I'm going to go for another hour. Let me jump in here. Simply Hired. I just want to show you an API. Pick a city, any city, not Seattle. I like Seattle. Madison. All right, why not? Madison, Wisconsin. All right. So what Simply Hired is, we don't own them. They are a job search aggregator. They scrape off jobs from public sector, private sector, nonprofit, academic websites, put them all in one place. It's the universe of jobs in any given market. Right now, there are 10,777 jobs. Who said Madison? What kind of jobs would you like to see there? Ooh, that's specific. All right. Application developer. Search all jobs there. I can see 1,689 listed there. This little IN API, I know a lot of you know what that is. I hit connect here. I type in my password, 8 black dots. Hit OK. And I can now see the relationships that I have in my LinkedIn network attached to the jobs that are there. That's an API for you. Socialization of the web. This is a game changer in the job search process, but you can start to see how we can integrate with your databases, both on the nonprofit and the academic side, how we can start to socialize your web pages through professional contacts, those people who have raised their hand and said they have an attachment to your organization. Now, I've showcased a lot of cool things for universities. Let's see some things for some of the nonprofits in the room. One of the nonprofits, tell me who you are. What was that? PATH, okay. What does PATH stand for? Program for Appropriate Technology and Health. Okay. So let's come up to companies. Uh-oh. Okay, we're going to go into search companies. Yeah, there we go. Okay. PATH, would it come up as PATH on here? Yes. There we go. Here is your company page. 2.8 million company pages. I can see how I relate to each one of them. And this is what yours looks like. By the way, where's my PATH person? All these guys, give them a round of applause. So we have 2.8 million companies that have a profile on LinkedIn. This is a free way for you to advertise, promote your brand within this space. You guys have actually done a great job on integrating your marketing messaging into this space. You have 7,000 people who are following your nonprofit right now. I know there are nonprofits in the room. You have a company page. You have people who've raised their hand to be communicated through you, and you're not communicating to them right now. And this is a professional space. But 7,000 followers that you guys are communicating with, right? So if I scroll down, I can see some of the information you're sharing. You're using it for hiring right now, not necessarily promotional from a marketing perspective, but you could certainly add that. We're pulling in government data on exactly who you are as a nonprofit. If I scroll up on the right-hand side, I can see 27 second-level connections, 1,100 employees that are connected to Path in some form or fashion. You have a lot of volunteers that are actually positioning their volunteerism as part of their work aspect. You also want to connect them into having it as an organization that they're attached to, or their causes and awareness, their volunteerism, to make sure that you can start to search that information on here. If I scroll down below, really cool thing, have you guys ever paid for brand identity study? See the brands that are very similar to you? So the users are doing it for you. They're saying that these 6 brands, based on how they're clicking on company pages within LinkedIn, are most similar to yours, which is kind of cool. If I scroll down into more insights, you can see additional information. I can see employees that are recent or recently been promoted, and those who've recently left the company based on my network. So I can see who's coming in and out of the organization based on my network. On the right-hand side, very interesting from a corporate attachment, I can see the 4 companies or organizations that most align and attach to Path based on LinkedIn. If I scroll down a little bit further, I can see the 5 top skills and expertise listed on profiles of people related to Path. So this is the connective tissue that you have. And I can see the most recommended, the beautiful people. These are some of those folks that are working directly with you. And if I scroll up to the top, I can follow this company and have any information that's posted through Path directly sent to me in an email digest on a weekly basis. You guys aren't really using it as a marketing tool right now, but there's certainly availability to do that. Universities, you can also see your university brand attachments, similar to that, what users are clicking on the brands that are most similar to you. So you'll see the other universities that users think you're similar to. From a corporate perspective, it also allows me to juggle the relationships within the company to see who's leaving and who's coming, who's going, things like that. Groups, let's jump up here real quick. I'm gonna jump into a group that I own, Alumni and Advancement Professionals, just take you into the back end. So if I come up to manage, some pretty cool things you can do here. You can send invitations to grow your group. So I click on this. If I've got a list of email addresses, I can upload it here. What LinkedIn does is it sends an invite to everybody who we match an email within LinkedIn to join your group. It excludes all the people who are already part of your group. If they're not in that, it sends them an email saying, join LinkedIn to join this group. So it automates that process for you. Additionally, if I look down on the left-hand side, I can see the unique URL for this group. Put that on every digital asset you have. Every email signature, your volunteers, every email signature that they have, every digital newsletter that you do, every web page that you do. I'm a big believer of cross-pollinating networks. Social media has become splintered. Traditional media has become splintered. If you can cross-pollinate those, you can reach people wherever they're hanging out. So this is a space to start to connect this group with Facebook, Twitter, whatever else you're trying to reach. If I scroll down here, news feeds, I can take RSS feeds if I want, attach them to this space, and I can start to communicate directly into this through information that is pulled from other databases, websites. What I will tell you about RSS feeds, you gotta be careful about relying on them too much. People speak differently in each one of these networks. So LinkedIn is like the corporate office, it's where business takes place. Twitter's like the water cooler, steady stream of information you're interested in right now. Facebook's like the bar. You can have some really good conversations you don't want to be transparent, but if that's the case, you need to talk differently in each one of those spaces. So, scroll back one more time. How many of you guys have heard of Barack Obama? So, 2008, the Obama campaign did one of the most comprehensive social media campaigns ever. They worked with a company called Blue State Digital and had 70 different types of interactions with users who were connecting to their brand. If I come down here to templates, I can start to automate activity within groups so that I can drive action for people to do different things. For instance, I could say, thanks for your interest. Now give us money at path.org. I won't save that because that'll get me in trouble. But you can see what you could do there, okay? Let me go back to the home page. Two quick things that I want to talk to you about. Who's viewed your profile? It's like the most voyeuristic thing on LinkedIn. I looked at it 10 minutes ago. All right, so if I come up here to who's viewed my profile, 42 people have viewed my profile in the last day. If I click on that, so this is probably some people in here. United Way of King County, where are you? Hey. All right. So here's a way to look at this. You are pitching people to give money back to the institution, to give back to United Way, right? As you're making those calls, some of those people are going to look at your LinkedIn profile. That's an indicator that they have interest. They wouldn't look otherwise. So it starts to give you not an absolute, but a read on how you're resonating with potential donors to give money back to the institution. Now, I heard in the last session, and then I'm going to tell a quick story and then I'm done, about listening into social media. I just want to share something with you real quick. Michael, I'm going to use your profile again. Name an organization in this room. How about United Way? That was the interactive portion of this. So, United Way. Oops. Updates, United Way. I can listen in social media. And I can start to see that 1,500 people in Michael's network have mentioned the United Way. I think there are 4 major principles that any organization should do to effectively navigate social media. Number 1, learn how to listen. Through updates, you can listen to your university brand, your nonprofit brand, see who's talking to you. You can see customer relations issues you have, communication issues, logistics issues. You can see what messaging is resonating. You can join the conversation of the day. Search.twitter.com, you can do it on Twitter as well, even if you don't have a Twitter account. So start listening on your brand every day. Number 2, target market. We took that 200 million people into a small subset of people that I wanted to search. I could look at, for instance, in keywords, United Way of King County, to see how many people have that attached to their brand. Those are people who have already associated with me. It gives me a lead list to go off of. Number 3, learn how to engage. Engage means dialogue, not push communication. So I actually actively have to communicate with people, but if I've listened to them and I know who I'm targeting, it gives me an ability to be effective on engagement. Number 4, start to list your social media ambassadors into your databases. There are people who are liking, retweeting, commenting all the time about each one of your organizations. Attach that information to the profiles, the transactional records you have in your back-end databases. Start to swarm that information to see what their interests are, what they are saying, and connect that to giving opportunities. Connect that back to the institution in some way. Quick story. I have been helping students for a long time in a number of different ways, leverage their social networks to create opportunity. There's one particular story that I love to tell because it showcases the unique ways that you can use information to help yourself out. I met a student who was totally positioned to end up being a worker in one of the big athletic conferences, like the Pac-12. He was all set. He was a former varsity football player. When I met him, he was getting his graduate degree. His name was Caleb Thornhill. And he had lineage. His brother had played Division I college football. His dad had played Division I college football. They had all the connections, relationships that you could have. Caleb used to show up to the career and professional development events that I would do on a regular basis. And about the 5th one, I pulled him aside and said, "Why do you keep coming to these?" And he goes, "Well, I pick up 1 or 2 things every time, and I learn it, and I apply it." And he goes, "And it's been very effective for me. And I'm starting to figure out what I want to do in life. And I was wondering if you'd help me out when I'm ready for that." A couple weeks later, he comes into my office. He says, "John, I figured out what I want to do in life." And I'm fully ready to connect him to the Big Ten office, Big East, all those connections that I had in those areas. And he goes, "I want to be a player development coach in the NFL." And I went, "Oh, no. There are only 32 of those positions. They change out like once every 4 years. It would be easier to get him into investment banking in New York City than it would be into the NFL. But we both looked through our networks on LinkedIn. One of us had a connection to the player development coach of the Detroit Lions. Caleb was really good at the offline principles, getting on the phone, talking to somebody, pitching his unique selling proposition. He was really good on the phone. He ended up positioning himself for a one-year unpaid internship with the Detroit Lions. He's 26 years old, going to be 27 pretty soon. All right? Major athletics is not an easy place to work. And he worked 80, 100-hour weeks. Now, he's living in Detroit, so it was a little easier to get away with not getting paid. But it was still tough for him. It wasn't, I used to live in Detroit, too. I can pick on it. So anyway, 80, 100-hour work weeks. He gets done with the year of an internship with the Detroit Lions. They were so happy with how he turned out that they offered him another one-year unpaid internship. So Caleb picks up the phone and gives me a call, and I said, hey, John, I don't know if I can do this. And I said, I can't tell you not to follow your dream, Caleb. He's 27. Serendipity has that way of playing into itself sometimes. Miami Dolphins fire their player development coach. Those coaches are friends with the Detroit Lions coaches. Pick up the phone and say, hey, do you know anybody who might be interested in this? Caleb's coach gives him a call, says, hey, Caleb, there's an opportunity in Miami. Caleb gets in the car in Detroit, drives 24 hours straight to Miami, buys a suit along the way. He's Googling the coaches, camps out in front of the player development facility at the Miami Dolphins. Each coach comes out, he pitches himself as the right person for that job. 2 weeks later, he's named the youngest player development coach in the NFL. Caleb's still a really good friend of mine. I infuse in him that idea of pay it forward. Give to your network with no expectation of receiving. Caleb works with another player development coach in the NFL to start a nonprofit called 4th and 1. 4th and 1, targeting inner city kids who are low socioeconomic varsity football players, 15 and 16 years old, at risk, bring them to college campuses for a week on how to develop mind, body, and spirit. Forget the football. He wanted them to focus on being better human beings, using the NFL resources to teach those kids, showing them that college is real and they can touch it. The first presentation that he had for those kids was me talking about LinkedIn. They're 15 and 16 years old. You can't even get on LinkedIn until you're 18. But he wanted them to understand future forward. Think, dream big. Dream those opportunities that are out there. I will say, every organization that's here, every nonprofit, every university, you have a ton of stories that you can tell off LinkedIn. You can identify those people who have done great things and tell their stories in your respective channels. I thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it. Best of luck to all of you.